and gentlemen, this is your cruise director, Tyler. Hope you're out there enjoying another beautiful day on board as we sail these high seas. If you've ever wondered what goes on behind the scenes of a cruise, it's time for you to pull up a stool, grab a drink, and buckle in, because you're about to hear stories that no other guests have heard before. Welcome to the Crew Bar in an episode of Ship-Faced, Confessions of a Drunken Cruise Director and Friends. Let's sail away. And there is my baby girl.
Hi, Mom. How are you?
I'm fantastic. It's Kathy.
Hi.
Mama's baby girl in front of me. She was my daughter in a musical we were in together. And we have thus held appropriately the mother-daughter connection ever since.
Interestingly enough, I was 43 years old at the time that I was playing your daughter.
Wow. That's amazing. And you still look like my daughter.
You know, living life to the fullest.
Awesome. And so the time we're going to talk about here on our podcast of All Things Cruise Life was when for you? What age were you entering into your work on cruise lines?
Oh, gosh. It was right after Disney. So
you worked at Disney on land?
Yes.
In Orlando?
In Orlando. Okay. We were doing the World Dancers show at Epcot Center. It was Epcot Center at that time because I'm so old. And Barbie, that mean Barbie, came in and threw us out.
Oh.
So, So one of the cruise lines, she was really, she hurt our ethnicity. Those blonde-haired, blue-eyed people who just came in and kicked all of us ethnic people out.
Thanks, Barbie.
Which is what Epcot's all about, right?
Right.
Ethnicity.
That is
anyway,
weird.
One of the cruise lines got wind of that and came and hired our entire cast for their cruise line.
Awesome.
So that was a godsend.
And that was the beginning for you?
And that was the beginning of ship life, yes.
Had you ever taken a cruise before as a guest?
Never.
And so this was your first time out at sea?
Yes.
Awesome. And you were how old?
Oh gosh, this was 1993. So I don't know. I don't do math very well.
Woo. Okay, 93. That sets it up well though.
To count to 8, obviously.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. So this is long before
93.
The iPhone. This is before.
Oh my goodness.
I think AOL came
way before iPhones, yes.
My life at 95? 96?
96, maybe?
Okay, this is exciting. We get to talk about cruise life before all this technology and the unique things and rules. And
yes.
Protections for people.
Lack of rules.
Right. Good night. Okay, so you went on board as a performer.
I did, yes.
So singing, dancing, show life.
Show life, that's right. And at the time, we were told that we were going to, double as cruise staff because at that time in cruise life, the ships were much smaller than they are now. Okay.
So how many guests would you ballpark?
I think my very first contract was 1,500 passengers.
Okay. Gotcha. And now some of them easily host up to between 3,000 to 5,000.
I can't imagine.
The mid-range ships, I think. Cool. Tell me, how was that adjustment for you? For finding where you lived on board and you had a roommate or you got your own cabin and your adjustment to ship life, and how long was your contract?
Well, wrench kind of got thrown in to the mix because, of course, they had hired our whole team from Disney to come in and be one team. But when we got there, they were teaching, I think, 2 teams together. And the other team was having a hard time with kind of leadership, someone who could lead the team. And so the director called me in and said, hey, listen, I know you don't want to do this, but I really need you on the other team to be the line captain because they have no one that can step into that thing. And of course, I was kicking and screaming, no way, because I had been with all of my other friends for 4 years. and we all had great relationships. So that was a hard thing right at the beginning. And then, so we had already been through our 9 weeks of rehearsal. And then now we're going to, step onto a ship and get put in. And I don't even know these people that I'm going on to the ship with. So,
and you're in a sense
hard.
their leadership. You're their
Yeah,
mini boss, right?
exactly.
Okay.
And it was, as you can imagine, hell ensued. It was crazy.
Yikes.
Yeah.
I can't wait to get to that. So you went on, and did you all essentially, your like head was the stage manager, and then you as the captain of the performers, what was the kind of flow of hierarchy there?
So the hierarchy was cruise director, senior assistant cruise director. Like at that time, they didn't even view the performers as crew members. They were viewed as cruise staff.
Right.
So that also danced and did the shows.
Okay.
So yeah, the hierarchy was cruise director, senior assistant cruise director, and then all of the cruise staff.
Okay.
So I was senior assistant cruise director. So my immediate head was the cruise director.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you just got on ships, and then that quickly you are into an assistant cruise director position, having never done this, never been on ships.
Right.
And you're expected to not just sing and dance, but kind of know all these things for the ship life.
Yeah.
Tell me all about this.
Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, you had to take the role of scheduling people to do activities that no one knew how to do because you're all new. And unfortunately, the cruise director was a complete drunk. So he would sleep through all of his deadlines for, I don't know if you, when you were on the ships, did they slide a little thing under everybody's door each morning to tell you what activities were happening that day?
Yes, like the daily program, essentially.
And the cruise director was responsible for that. But if he didn't meet that deadline every day, guess who? Yours truly, the senior assistant cruise director, had to fulfill that deadline for the printers. So yeah, it was nuts.
So you're doing all essentially of the work of an event manager to put together the programming, and like you're the editor for it to send it over for print. A very all-inclusive job that is now essentially like 3 or 4 positions.
Sure. And not even speaking about wig care and costume care and fittings and sizing people and finding, fixing costumes. I mean, all of that fell on me.
That's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And the cruise director sounds familiar. Like many cruise directors, like they're a light bulb and then they're crazy drunk. Not everyone, but it's a pressurized role. And the funny odd title, obviously, of this podcast, Confessions of a Drunken Cruise Director. The notion that every cruise director has a flask in his back pocket's not true. There's many wonderful good ones, but my experience and my sobriety is one of those reasons why. I was great, but at the same time, high pressure got me with the addiction that I brought to the ship. So it sounds like Mr. Cruise Director on your end did the same.
Yes.
So would you watch him like sloppily working in like drunken states?
Oh my gosh, no, we'd watch him at night, and that's when I would go, oh no, I better check to see if, and there was no email, there were no cell phones, there was nothing. So you'd get a knock on your door at midnight saying, hi, I'm sorry, so-and-so didn't do the events for tomorrow. Can you please get up and tell us what they are? His door is right next door. You're welcome to knock on his door.
They know better.
Right.
Oh, that's wild. So what was your relationship like with this cruise director as the assistant cruise director?
Oh, it was non-existent. Non-existent. He didn't have anything to do with us ever. In fact, there was a show that was for pub night or something like that involved finding a passenger. We each had a character in the show to sort of go out into the passenger world and find someone that would like to perform that character in the show. And then you had to teach them that part, and then they'd perform it on pub night. It was like this comedy show. And he was in charge of that show. And yeah, I mean, the only time we ever even spoke to him was that night, whatever pub night was.
And you have to just watch from afar being like, how is this sir so beloved by the guest?
Right.
And then, so that's your relationship going up. How is the relationship with all of the dancers and performers looking at you?
Uh, not great, because obviously I'm the one who's involved in, anyone who's in authority. No one really wants to get told, that they're doing something incorrectly, right? You have to figure out a way, I had never been in that sort of leadership position. So I quickly had to find a way to speak to these very fragile beings,
That's
who are
not how we
very,
did the 8 count from the last contract
that's right,
type
you
stuff.
know, who are all very new, brand new.
Hmm.
So yeah, you can guess how they viewed me. So I was stuck in the middle.
What a rock and a hard place. So what did you do for some peace or to find
So the
companionship?
DJ, God bless him, he is my friend to this very day. And this is what, 30 years later? Yeah, he is my good friend to this day. He comes into town. We see each other every time he's in town. He was my saving grace. I escaped to his room or to his wherever he was DJing that evening and just stayed with him. He was my protector from all of those very mean people,
On both sides.
because I was very sweet and naive and all of the above.
Yes. How long did that last?
Well, that was an 8-month contract.
And then naivete is out the window.
Oh, yes. Yes. You wondered how long I stayed naive. Maybe a month into the 8 months.
What was like a great, like, oh, that's how things are out here moment for you?
Well, the DJ, God bless him. I mean, he was like, where do they, he chose a different passenger every night to have relations with.
Not guest relations. We mean
No, not guest relations. but
relations.
relations. Yes. And, I just remember looking at him and going, oh my gosh, like he's either a stud or he's really crazy. Or he
Or
just doesn't care.
Or he's the DJ.
Or
And it's
he's the
something
DJ.
out there whenever you're in like positions of like Mr. DJ, Mr. Cruise Director, whatever, that people are like, the guests especially look at like a treasure hunt, but then as well, I'm sure the opposite direction. But how crazy that like it was a common thing for him, and now these days, any hint of that is like, bye-bye.
Right. You're gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I'd see him sneaking passengers into the crew area and into the crew bar. And
The Holy Grail?
yeah. And of course, I wasn't really going out a lot because I had so much responsibility that I had
Right.
to make sure. I knew that the cruise director wasn't going to take care of it. And I learned very quickly that they were coming to me for all of that information. So about a month into it, I was like, okay, whatever. If it doesn't get done, then it's going to fall on his head, not mine. I quickly realized.
Great.
So then I just started having fun with everybody.
Awesome.
And interestingly enough, once I started having fun and I wasn't so serious, then my cast members started enjoying my company more.
Yeah. It takes a minute to get the balance out there.
Sure.
Because you still have to be a leader, a boss, a directive to get things in place and make sure they happen, but yet it's cool. It flows.
Yeah.
If things fall short, they fall short. There's
Right.
tomorrow
Right.
or the next show. Cool.
Mm.
Who did you, other than the DJ, who did you find as your like close confidant? Did you find any, in the shows we've got showmance. Was there any shipmance for you?
There was on that first contract. Struck up a really good relationship with the ship's doctor.
Oh, that's a good person to know, to be close with.
He was really kind, a very kind man. I had a very bad problem with ingrown toenails, being in the character shoes all the time. And so he did surgery on both of my toes. And after that, we were like, I would just go down to his cabin, which was, away from everything, so nice and quiet. And nobody knew that I was down there. So no one could find me. No one could knock on my door. And so, yeah, he and I struck up a very nice romance. It was very nice.
I like it. And a perk of that, you got surgery at sea.
Right.
Ship surgery on your ingrown toenails.
Well, he just happened to be a plastic surgeon by trade.
Wow. That's funny.
Yeah.
That's like a whole show in of itself, the ship.
Yeah. And his job was a whole show in itself.
Yeah. What did you see
Oh
in and
my
out of his
gosh.
infirmary?
Well, our cruise line was known for being the cruise line of the blue hairs. So people would literally book cruises to die on.
Welcome to It's Over Cruise.
Right.
Enjoy until it's your time.
Right. And so lots of our time spent together would be him just venting about the fact that, he's their terminal care,
Right. He's
So
their
they would
hospice.
come and they would have maybe two, on a 15-day cruise, maybe they would have 2 great days, and then they'd be in his care for the rest of the days and then die towards the end of the thing. So, he would sit and listen to all of their stories about what a great life they had and how their life is over, and how they're leaving this world and how they chose to leave this world this way. And that weighed heavily on him. So it was nice that I was there to sort of let him release any of that energy, because more cruises than not, he would have gurneys lined up waiting to get off
Wow.
and disembark. Yeah.
Gurneys full of deceased passengers.
Full of deceased passengers. Yes.
That is a wild image to like think about, but it's like it's so true. And I saw the same of like so many people do. They use cruise ships as a nursing home or the final like
Yes.
why not? It's sometimes
Right.
cheaper than a
Right.
nursing home. You get better food and care.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah. Did you ever? So as crew, you have to like wait for your turn to disembark, right?
Yes.
You're waiting down in the hallway, and always right before they called us, as we're waiting in the hallway, right before us would always be the dead.
Right.
There they go.
Guests first.
Gurneys go off first, and now you may leave. There you go.
Yeah.
Cast members, bye.
Like I was talking, I actually interviewed a ship doctor,
Mhm.
and we were talking how just like it's the simple things people forget that it's a floating hotel. It's out,
Right.
on the ocean. So a wave or lurch like sends people rolling downstairs, crashing into things crashing into them. You kind of have to be aware and alert, and it's the absolute last thing that people are is aware and alert.
Right.
There's like on
On a ship.
vacation. But did you have dating the ship doctor? Did you see any other wild emergencies or things happen that you're like, oh my gosh?
The only other wild emergency that I witnessed was someone having a heart attack and a helicopter, Coast Guard helicopter, having to come and take them off of the ship.
Yeah, that's a unique thing to experience and witness.
Yeah. Yep.
For your 8-month contract, how many itineraries did you get to go on?
Let's see. We did a Mexican Riviera first for about 3 months. Then we did Trans-Panama Canal. So back and forth from LA through the Panama Canal and to Fort Lauderdale.
That's a popular one. Everyone loves that tight little pinch.
I did not.
No.
It was not my
claustrophobic for you.
favorite. And then the tail end of that was Western Caribbean.
Nice. It's funny. I don't know about you, and this is like a first world thing to say, but like I was like, I'm tired of beautiful beaches after seeing them for 8 weeks in a row. But there is so much beauty out
So
there
much
and
beauty.
down there that it was truly a joy thinking that you're still working or getting paid while you're out there in those places.
Oh my goodness. On my second contract, it was the rule that you get, 2 months off in between contracts, or, whatever. Oh, that is never the case. Someone's always injured. Someone's, always needs a fill in somewhere. So I did 3 consecutive 8-month contracts with no time in between. So as soon as my contract was done on the first ship, they flew me directly over to England to do the Baltic Sea. Someone was injured over there. So, but when we were cruising the Baltic Sea, I was just in awe because I never thought I'd ever get to Europe in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And B, every day you're in a different country and allowed to go, with the tour groups and just allowed to do this at no cost.
Right.
Like you're getting paid to see the world. It was the most incredible time.
So you're sitting here telling me you spent 2 years on cruise ships.
Yes. I lived on a ship for 2+ years. Yes.
It's after that 2 years trying to adjust back to the land life.
I don't think I had a problem. I was always worried about where the next job was, where the next gig was, So when I had decided that that's it for ships with me, I was more worried about where my next gig was going to be rather than am I going to be able to adjust to land life again.
Right.
I don't think it took me any.
And again, I keep hearing this, that it's just such good money.
Oh, yeah.
You have nothing to spend money on. No rent,
nothing.
Unless you're just out there like, I need to buy this and drink here and eat there. So there is that risk of like when you're seeing these places and you're like,
Right.
get that vacation mentality, like we're here once, let's do it. And finding that balance in there, you'll blow all that money, but otherwise a great way for a young person to see the world, put good money in their pockets, meet people from all around the world. Who is some of the most interesting people you worked with that made your second, third contract wild and interesting?
Always the cruise director was always the interesting person on board because normally they had the most experience, so they had been everywhere. So it's always great to hear their stories when they were coherent.
They're coherent stories.
They weren't all like that, but
get the mic away from them, please.
That and the guest artists. So any of the people that would come on board in port. So when we were in port, especially in Alaska, all of those people were so amazingly interesting. All of the, dance troupes that would come aboard and perform when you're in port for a certain number of days. Oh, Hawaii was amazing. All of those dance troupes, the fire eaters, the hula people, the singers, all of the Hawaiian people. So interesting.
Did you ever have any like scary moments on any of these ports of call or in between, like out at sea? Were there any moments you're like, I'm not going to make it out of this?
Yeah. Oh gosh. I remember doing a bridge tour on my first ship, which was very, very small. And the showroom was in the back of the ship, which normally, because it was a very old ship, normally the showrooms are in the front.
Yes.
So it was all glass. So when you were in the showroom, like calling bingo or doing whatever during the day, and sometimes all you could see in the windows was sea, sky, sea, sky, sea, sky. That's how much the ship was listing and rocking and how high the seas were. But I specifically remember doing a bridge tour during a very bad storm, and they have this chart in the bridge that says, category whatever, whatever, whatever. This is what the waves will look like. And I remember the passengers saying, I don't think we should be in here because look, it's like category 10. And I'm like, okay, everybody come this way. And then, the captain comes in and says, yeah, everybody has to get off the bridge, whatever. Oh, yes. Scary times on that ship because it was a very small ship.
Again, bridge for everyone is the cockpit of the ship. It's where like the captain and nautical crew maintain everything these days from the push of a button or a dial, typically. But back in that day, probably some unique, more old school fashioned concepts to navigate.
And then the ships in the Baltic Sea are all built like ferries. So they have flat bottoms. So the Baltic Sea does not get very big seas, but any small little wave of anything, the ship sort of like flies over and then slams down back onto the sea. So anytime there was any sort of disturbance in the Baltic Sea, the ship would slam and then shake and vibrate, and everything would come falling off of your walls from everywhere. Middle of the night, slam. Oh, we just hit a wave. Those were scary moments.
It's wild just listening to the old, almost old tale ways of cruising, that it's just like an expected thing for things to come shattering or breaking. It's like, of course it is. We're on a boat.
Right.
Like,
right.
But now there's like stabilizers and all these beautiful technologies that are mind-blowing in the way a ship can perform and feel like nothing at all.
And I always say, I have never been on a cruise ship as a passenger, never in my life. I would love to take a cruise
To this day.
to this day.
That's so wild, Kathy. Like
I
that you
know.
spent 2 years back to back
Yeah,
performing, but you've still never sailed as a guest.
never.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. My family's, well, because I've always been busy. My family has gone on many cruises for the Mickey Mouse. And, I just never, I have always been working. I've never been able to join them,
Yeah.
but I would love to.
What's something you regret not doing during that 2 years and something that you definitely regret doing?
I most definitely, my biggest regret that I didn't do was that first team at the end of that 8 months got the chance to go on a world cruise. So 180 something days
Yeah.
around the world. And I chose to leave because we didn't get along. And I didn't think 185 days with those people was going to be the best thing for me.
Right.
So I definitely regret not doing that.
Like looking at that could have been the worst 180 days of your friggin' life. Like still seeing beautiful scenery, but it tainted with Melissa and her annoying, whatever the cast for the conflict.
Right. But I think to myself, could I have gotten past that in order to see the world?
Right. Yeah.
That's always in the back of my mind. I mean, weekly, I
Yeah.
think about that.
We got to get you on a world cruise then.
I know. Tell my husband.
I will. And then what is the one thing you do regret doing?
Oh, gosh. I don't know if I regret doing anything. I didn't really do anything terrible that any other human being hasn't done. I was young and wild and carefree.
Yes.
I mean, the drinking was intense. We had what was called a 90043 account that we were supposed to groom passengers with, sit and talk to lonely people because mostly they were old people, or, buy them a drink and ask them if they want to dance at the captain's cocktail party. So we had this account that we could use for that purpose. But of course, we never used it for that purpose. We used it to go out at night to the club.
And you all go sit in a corner by yourself.
Get shit-faced.
Yes.
Right. And go through the entire ship's, ew, this is gross. This is probably the biggest regret. The entire ship's inventory of Goldschlager. Disgusting.
Oh.
Disgusting.
The Goldschlager cruise.
The Goldschlager cruise.
That's incredible.
Nasty.
The entire ship's inventory. That's well done.
On the 90043 account.
Yes, you polish that off. It's funny. I had the same thing. I had an account specifically for me, only me, that I think was $150 a month. But I mean, I'd blow through that. Drinks were inexpensive, and yet I would blow through it. So it's like, yo, the frequency. And in my time, there was implemented no spirits, and it was beer and wine only for crew. So I don't know if it was a chance or a try to help crew drink less, but my personal drinking got worse because I was like, challenge accepted. And
gotcha.
Personally
Beer
went hog
I
wild.
can do.
Because I was definitely doing well with all those spirits. But that was only in the crew areas. I could drink anything I wanted anywhere.
Right.
But were there any restrictions or
Zero. Oh my gosh. No restrictions ever. The only real rule that you had to follow was that you had to be back to the ship before they raised the gangplank.
How did that go?
Not so good sometimes. Had to buy a couple of air flights to the next port.
No way. Like when?
Oh my gosh. With the DJ, of course, in Puerto Vallarta, we rented a Jeep to go up to Chico's Paradise. Way up in the mountains, right? So you had to leave your ship ID and your driver's license at the hotel where we rented the vehicle. Go up, rent the vehicle, come back down. When we came back down, no one was there to receive the vehicle or give our information back. So we're calling, from a payphone, obviously, whoever we can find, um, to for somebody to come to this hotel office to accept the vehicle and give us our IDs back.
Yeah.
Nope. There goes the ship. Bye, ship.
I love this story, and I love this time frame, because what people cannot relate to right now is, wait, what? You didn't have a cell phone to call the ship to let them know you're late. You didn't have
Nope.
it was a payphone.
No email.
You
no
had
nothing.
to have a coin to make that phone call happen in your pocket, or borrow a coin from someone who had one to make this phone call. And yet you did just fine. You figured it out.
We called the person in charge of entertainment in LA. Hi, the ship left without us. What do we do? Okay, here's what you do. You call this number. We're going to, book you a ticket. We're going to take it out of your
Paycheck
earnings
for sure.
the week, out of your paychecks, and you're going to meet the ship in the next port. That's what you're going to do.
And so if you had a role in a show that night,
if we had a role in a show that night, they had to do it without us. Luckily, we didn't have a show that night, but the very next morning when we roll up to the ship, you get called immediately to the captain's office.
how'd that go?
Oh, not good. He was so angry. And, they're all like Norwegian, or, they're all from Europe. So they're all very stern people to begin with. And you feel like 1 inch tall. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. It'll never happen again, sir. He doesn't want to hear why you were late. He doesn't want to hear that the people weren't there. It doesn't matter. It is your fault. So now he takes your ID, and you are now stuck on the ship. You may not go ashore for an entire cruise. So
Put baby
days.
in the corner.
Baby in the corner.
Oh, wow.
Baby and DJ in the corner.
Oh,
Thank God we were stuck on board together.
Right. How long were you in where bad children go?
15 days in the chokey.
No way. So for 15 days, you couldn't get off at any port to call?
Yep.
That sounds crazy to me.
It was.
Yeah.
Again, in the era of no internet, no nothing.
Right.
VHS. You got VHS tapes.
Did you have a TV and VHS player in your room?
I did. I won it in the very first poker tournament, the very first hand of poker I ever played in my life. I won the tournament and won a VHS TV combo for my room.
That's such a Titanic story. In a poker game.
It was a poker game.
She won a VHS. That's amazing. How was your cabin?
My cabins were all amazing. On the first ship, I was senior assistant cruise director, so we were up on the 10th deck. Beautiful picture window.
Come on.
Yeah, it was lovely. Lovely. And we were very blessed to have all statuses. So we had crew status, we had officer status, we had passenger status. So we could go anywhere on the ship at any time, eat anywhere, do anything we would like to. The entertainers were the only ones who had all of the statuses.
Did you ever meander down to see like the engine room? And
absolutely. Oh, absolutely. We would go down, and the one pastry chef, the Italian pastry chef, he did not speak English, but I understand Italian, but I cannot speak it. So I would speak English back to him and he could understand. So we would have conversations, he and I, at all hours of the night while he was baking the croissants. I would just sit there in the bakery with him and just chat.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then the love language of pastry was flowing.
That's right.
Getting all those fresh pastries. I definitely remember like late nights I'd be back, just shit-faced on my way to my room, and I'd always pass by, sometimes unattended, the cookie and pastry room, and I'd get like a paper towel somewhere and just stuff the fresh hot, my fingers burning, and then wake up with pastry crumbs next to my bed.
hot.
Like, what happened? You ate all that, sir.
Wait, what did I do? Regrets.
Awesome. Yeah, how much were you making as a performer for these two contracts?
I think we were making like $700 a week. Way back then, that was good.
Yeah, that's some nice change for back then.
Yeah, I mean, I was very blessed to get in at the very right time and get out at the very right time.
Yeah.
It was the heyday of cruising, just like you said, these big groups, like it was the cream of the crop. You know what I'm saying? That came on the ships. It was very high class. They paid well because they knew they wanted people who were going to really do a good job, I
Right.
think, and take care of these high class people who spent a large amount of money for this 15-day vacation.
Yeah.
It was the heyday.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Unfortunately, once the internet and cell phones and all of that hit, I think
Yeah.
things started going downhill.
Yeah, it's what made that cruise life so interesting and appealing for you.
I don't know that I would have been drawn to it if it wasn't out of necessity. We, being kicked out of our show being closed out of nowhere, and then being picked up by the cruise line. I don't think I would have gone out there and searched for it myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It just never appealed to me in that way. But now I really want to go on a cruise because
Yeah.
I know what it's about.
Yep. Did being on ships grow you as a person?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Number one, traveling the world and getting paid to do so was the number one thing that opened my eyes to everything. I was just a small town girl from Erie, Pennsylvania, and Orlando was a big jump for me. So, and Disney World was a big jump for me. But then to travel the world and be paid to do it, like, just crazy.
What would you say to someone who's considering working on a cruise line? How would you feel if one of your kids was like, I think I'm going to go work on a cruise line?
I would love it. I'd say do it. Do it while you're young. Do it while you can. Absolutely. Travel the world. Get paid to do so because you never know when your number's up.
Do you think you could go on a cruise ship to die?
I don't think so. No. No. I wouldn't want to put the ship's doctor through that. Unless it was my ship's doctor. Then yes.
Right. What was the craziest thing you saw a crew member do or that happened to a crew member?
My best friends. And they were part of our Disney cast. And they liked the marijuana a lot. And they were cabin mates on a different ship. And we would see them in port quite often. And so the three of us would, meet and have a great time in port. And then one time as I'm leaving port, I always would go out onto the deck and wave at them if they were still in port, and they would be on the dock. And one time they had their bags with them and they were like, bye, call me at the next port. They had gotten fired because the dogs came on and found all the marijuana in their cabin.
Oh no.
And that was their last trip with the cruise line.
Yikes. That's a unique thing too about cruising. You never know when various customs are going to pop in, check in on any level of things.
Right.
Were drugs kind of rampant back then? Were they easier to get on board? And did you hear of people doing them?
With all my naivety, the only thing that I experienced was with those two. And it was the marijuana. And that was it. I never really experienced any hard drugs or, it's just lots of alcohol.
Right.
Which is a drug in itself.
Totally. Is there, when you were on board, when you kind of wanted to be with yourself or just escape a minute, was there a place on the ship that you would go?
Well, I would always go to DJ's room, always. But if I wanted to be by myself, oh gosh, no, I can't remember. I think I would just go ashore by myself.
Yeah.
And wander and see the world.
I would always go up to the sports court which was like the
Oh,
most top tier level.
lucky. We didn't
is-
have a sports court.
We didn't have a sports court, so it was encased with netting, of course, to play tennis or basketball. And with nobody up there at night, it was just like the perfect overview for everything else. And I would just lay on the sports court and look at the stars and the black sky. And
Oh, that sounds beautiful.
there was another level up there, and I'd just be sitting by myself to find moments and spots where you're not constantly on. And I would just take breath up there.
Yeah, I think mine was my cabin.
Right on.
Just hide in my cabin.
Cool. Is there anything that you wished I would have asked you?
No? I think you got it all.
Then what do you think we need, friend? What do you think we need to enjoy this journey of life?
Well, I know we definitely need belief in a higher power. We need to be kinder to one another, but especially to ourselves. And just realize that everyone is human. Everyone. And we're all on this earth together. And there's no reason that, we should be at odds with one another. Just see the other side and try to understand somebody else.
I like that answer. Isn't it fun? Just kind of going nostalgic and remembering, and it brings
It
about
is.
these memories you haven't thought about in so long.
It is.
But when you do, how really cool and beautiful they are.
Yeah. And to see how you've grown from all of those experiences.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing your
Thank
story.
you.
And I've just loved seeing your face. And
I know, it's so nice to talk to you and see you. Wish I could squeeze you.
me too. Get a hug from my baby girl.
Love you, Mom.
All right. Well, again, thank you so very, very much for sharing here with us on Shipfaced. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Signing off.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of our Wild Stories at Sea. If you have any crazy endeavors out on the Big Blue, email me at cruisedirectortyler@gmail.com. That's cruisedirectortyler@gmail.com. We would love to hear your stories either on board or from the crew bar. And that's it for this port of call. Join us as we sail on to the next wave of outlandish stories on Shipfaced, Confessions of a Drunken Cruise Director and Friends. A quick disclaimer. While this podcast is based on the experiences of me and my guests, certain details may have been modified, and for privacy purposes, names of any all parties may have been changed. The views and opinions expressed here are mine and my guests, and not that of any brand I may be affiliated with. Yes. Stop recording.